In the darkest night, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey everyone, how you doing today? It is Wednesday, our 6 p.m. live. Thank you for joining us today. As you can see, first, thank you. You found Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. As you can see, I am healing. I'm not quite there. It's probably going to be at least another couple of weeks until I'm, back to normal. This is not shadow. It's actually my black eye, but we are definitely doing better. Um, I'm gonna throw up our trigger warning here for today's show, just out of an abundance of caution, because we are going to be discussing a real sensitive topic today. Well, how much discussing we'll be doing together, I guess, depends on how many people we end up having here in the chat, but it's an important conversation that I think needs to be brought into the light. And it is this disturbing trend of the sexualization of parent-child relationships. And we spoke briefly about this when I did my 2 videos on pornography, both the adult porn and then also the effects of porn on kids, and how we're seeing an increase there in um, pornography that's made with, parents, stepkids, uh, just parent child. And it's disturbing because it wouldn't exist if there wasn't a market for it. And so I want to talk about this trend. I want to talk about what it is, why it's there, and what can we do about it. And I certainly don't have all the answers, but something that I saw, it was actually a YouTube ad as I was while listening to, AI generated stories just kind of in the background as I was working. Absolutely nothing to do with parent child other than it was sometimes a child comes home or it's a bully and they're, discussing it with their parent. Absolutely no sex. It's mainly what I've been listening to is about people fighting back and, standing up for themselves and things like that. They're pretty repetitive, but it's good background for me to be able to work and not have to listen real carefully with it. But my point about that is absolutely no reason to insert this particular video because of what I'm watching, because of my content on YouTube. And the one that stopped me in my tracks was, I've been seeing a lot of these 7-second tricks, 7-second tricks for constipation, um, you know, for diabetes, the salt trick you can use for diabetes, weight loss, memory issues. It's the elephant trick. I mean, there's just a gazillion. You name a health condition, they probably got one that you can combine four ingredients that are in your kitchen, and voila, within a week you're going to be fixed of whatever your ailment is. This one stopped me in my tracks. And what this particular one is there is a young, fit woman on an elliptical trainer. So she's got her feet going and she's got the hand things going. All she's got is her workout top, her workout bra, and leggings, skin tight Lycra leggings that are in these light pastel, flashy colors. And so you notice that because her rear end is, front and center on it. But what you notice even more is at her private part, there's a flashing light. So it's obviously there for you to, to draw attention to your eye, to draw attention to that area. And what the ad is actually for is the salt trick that men can do in the shower to get hard. And so the verbiage starts by saying, "I caught my son spying on me in the shower as my husband tried this trick." Why? My first thought is, I'm like, Okay, why don't you just say that your husband used it, and came in the shower with you or something?" But it was the next sentence that dropped my jaw. And what it said was, "And so the next morning, I let my stepson try it on me." Uh, hello? What? What? And so then it continues. So if if your man can't get hard or whatever, here are the ingredients, for how to do it, and click on this video and it'll show you everything. Why are we inserting a stepson into this situation? Why are we actually saying I allowed my stepson to try this on me? Known about the trend within porn, but to see it in a YouTube ad, blatantly just stating it, normalizing it, was absolutely shocking to me. When did we get this far? Now, I'm somebody who I'm not on media a lot. I watch my YouTube videos. That's basically my entertainment, and I'm here with my live. I don't I don't know the last time I watched a movie. I don't watch TV. I don't own TV. I don't have cable or any streaming services that I use. So I'm not up to date on pop culture or our current cultural trends. But this is absolutely frightening to me. Is this where we have come? Have we come so far? Has our moral compass degraded to such a degree that we're normalizing parent child sexual relationships? You know, kids can't consent. I don't care if it's a 17-year-old or a 4-year-old. Kids cannot consent. And even if you're talking about an 18 or 19-year-old, when you're talking about parent-child relationships, you are going to severely damage that child if you break that trust in such a fundamental way as to engage in a sexual relationship with them. They are going to, you know, kids' brains continue to develop into their early 20s. You are going to damage their brain development, harm their brain development. Things can get rewired. You're teaching them that this is normal. They're going to have severe trust attachment issues if this were to occur to them, in addition to just the long-term health issues. CPTSD, PTSD, anxiety, depression, everything that goes along, all the effects of trauma. In addition, in this particular type of circumstance, sexual issues, particularly depending on the age of the child. If they're sexualized too early, they can act out sexually at an inappropriate age. And in addition to having relationship problems. Hey, Co-Train. Hey, Patty. Yeah, I'm on the healing journey. We'll put it that way. My physical healing journey. Society has gone to poop, Co-Train says. Yeah, it really has, because I just when when did we come to a point that this is okay for YouTube to show as an ad? How is this not flagged somehow? Normalization of this type of behavior in social media, um, I believe, has been a huge driver towards this. You've got influencers who are posting their kids in inappropriate poses, inappropriate outfits, basically sexualizing their children at a very young age. And I can tell you from personal experience that when you are sexualized young, that becomes part of your identity. That you feel that that is one of the ways that you are going to get the best attention, or the only way that you can get attention, which of course is going to lead to all sorts of issues: getting into relationships too early, being vulnerable to be victimized by others, susceptible to grooming. We see this in, the kids' clothes that are out there now. I don't really believe that there's any reason to be putting a 5-year-old in a bikini. There just isn't. In and of itself, is that harmful? No, but it is harmful because of the greater context that we're talking about. If we didn't have the sexualization of children in society, then it wouldn't be such a huge issue. But again, I'm probably a poor one to speak about this only because I'm not up to date on the latest culture, and I can't give you the best examples of this, but I know that it's been going farther and farther in movies, in music, in just regular advertisements. Obviously, we can see it in regards to this advertisement. Patty brings up the kids pageants. Yeah, you've got little kids that are totally made up to look like adults, the little girls with the full face makeup and everything. Why? Understand putting a little color on their cheeks if they're doing their pageant thing because from audience to on stage, you lose color because of the lights. But the full glam thing, why is that necessary? Why can we not celebrate kids like kids? Why do they have to look like mini adults? What is going on in society that allows us to be accepting of this? That is my biggest question because it is public acceptance or acquiescence at the very least that is allowing this. Like I said, with the porn industry, if there wasn't a market for it, it wouldn't exist. And from my research, looking at the trends of hashtags in terms of the types of hashtags that have been used and how often, there's been a significant increase in the last 10 years. Why is that? This fetishization on a parent-child relationship. Now, I get it. There's fetishes everywhere, whether I agree with them or I don't. I believe at some level, we're a human society, it's going to exist. But the increase is what is very concerning to me because that means it's being normalized. And I can understand from a pornography aspect that the more people watch porn, you want something, they're going to need something edgier. That's why hardcore porn exists. And then you get into these taboo subjects, and there's a certain population that would be, drawn to that as kind of their next edge because everything else has become too vanilla. But it made the switch from just being a trend in pornography to being a trend in everyday life in society. Social media is a very good tool when it's used properly. But I think especially when you have influencers and people on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube who are fighting for viewers. Sex sells. And the fact that we have gotten to a point where we're willing to utilize our children to propel an agenda, to propel a desire for success on these social media platforms is deeply concerning. So I have written some notes. Coltrane says there'll always be a porn industry. Um, some things I'm trying just not to put on screen, so I'll talk about it. But there'll always be a porn industry, legal or not. There's just some freaky people out there. Absolutely, and I agree. It's the increase and the normalization of it, the acceptance of it in everyday society. There is no reason why, with that ad that I told you about, that there should have been a child inserted into it. There was absolutely no reason for that other than like a shock factor to keep people listening. But by doing so, we're normalizing it because we're talking about it in a certain context. We're normalizing that sexualization, and we just kind of accept what they said and say, well, it was, an ad for basically ED, and move on. I'm an advocate for survivors. That's my lane, I guess, if you want to say. But I think as a society, we're going to have to take a stand. If we don't want this future for our children, if we want kids just to be able to be kids, society in general is going to have to mobilize and say, no, we don't accept this. No, I'm not going to watch that music video. But I know it's difficult because those are the things, those titillating things are what's going to draw somebody in. And somebody's going to watch it just because, you're not supposed to watch it. And so they watch it. But by doing so, we're accepting it. Patty says the desensitization has horrible repercussions. Absolutely. Absolutely. I really worry with this trend as to what this means for the next generation who will then be raising kids. And that's going to be my child's generation, Gen Z. What are things going to be like when they're raising their kids? Now, I understand that there is a line between media and someone acting in real life. But the problem becomes the desensitization, as Patty stated, the normalization of this type of behavior in media can then transfer to the home environment and potentially allow somebody, or someone could do something they wouldn't normally do because it's been so normalized around them, or they're acting out some fantasy because they've been so desensitized to it being wrong. So certainly us as parents, have a huge responsibility to educate our kids as to what's right and wrong. And I think it's particularly incumbent upon my generation, Generation X, and the millennials who are raising their kids now that they instill in their children that this is not normal. This is not right. This is not something that should occur. Just as we are educating them about grooming, wherever that grooming occurs, with whoever the groomer is. And as we know, 95% of them are somebody who are close to that person, whether it's immediate family, extended family, or, close friends, trusted individuals. A large portion of that's family. And so we have to be extremely vigilant in teaching our kids that they cannot consent to sex, no matter the other person's age. It doesn't matter if it's another child who's a little bit older or a lot older than them. It doesn't matter if it's a parent, a grandparent, a religious figure, a sports figure, a school figure. They cannot consent. And teaching them how to say no, teaching them to enforce boundaries with adults, with other kids as well. And so speaking in the greater context, outside of even parent-child relationships. But if we're speaking about just that, giving them the agency over their body, giving themselves the confidence to be able to say no to a parent when it involves certain behaviors, because that can be scary. If they've never been taught it's okay to say no to somebody coming, at them with some sort of sexualized behavior. I know a lot of us were taught, you respect your elders, and you certainly are taught to respect your parents or to do what they say. But they need to know that certain things are not okay, no matter who is asking them to do it. And this is the one time that I would say that if you have a relationship with a child, a good relationship with the child, and if you know that that child has not been taught agency over their body, that they have not been taught that there are boundaries that adults should not cross, that this is the one time that you definitely should step in and educate that child. And I understand, especially if you're dealing with other family members, stepping in and parenting, essentially what you're doing is you're parenting that child. I feel so I feel it's so important because what's the alternative? I mean, certainly you can approach the parents and say, hey, have you taught them this? And if they haven't, we can give them the tools to be able to do so. How to talk to kids at different ages about this. Because I understand that a lot of parents may not talk to their kids about it because it's an uncomfortable topic. They may have no idea how to address it. This is kind of my the next phase of what I want to be doing with my advocacy work in supporting survivors. Um, I've said I want to, I call it the speaking circuit, but just get out there and start speaking about this to audiences. But I think that not only speaking to audiences about trauma, its effects, supporting survivors, education for parents and for kids is also going to be a focus of mine. And really, in developing today's topic, that kind of crystallized for me because I talk about it, how important education is. And I'm certainly going to keep using YouTube. I'm sorry, I have my window open. If you can hear the motorcycle outside. Certainly, I'm going to keep using YouTube and Surviving Together, this platform, to be able to talk about education. But I think we need to be involved in our communities with it. We certainly need to be involved in, whoever our immediate family is, whoever is immediately around you, and ensuring that these kids get this education, ensuring that the adults get this education and understand how damaging that this can be for the kids. Because even if they survive their childhood and they are fortunate enough not to have faced SA at all in their childhood, if they don't understand that their continued exposure to social media in regards to the sexualization of kids and normalization of a parent-child sexual relationship, that's something they can inadvertently carry on with them. Patty says, "Do you remember how outraged you were at the Brooke Shields billboard?" Was it, I think it was Calvin Klein. No, I absolutely do. And she's spoken about that actually recently, and how I think she was 12 because she played a, oh, I forget the name of, is it Pretty Face? I think it was Pretty Something. And she played like a prostitute, but she played a child prostitute. And she's spoken about how damaging that this was to her psyche and the later effects, that she's felt for it. And I can't speak to specifics. I remember hearing snippets from her, but I didn't hear the whole story. So I can't say exactly, how she feels about how it's affected her. But she does. She looks back and sees how damaging it was. Listen, I'm under no pretense that this type of behavior, that the subject is something that is never going to be out there, that we could eradicate it fully. But the massive uptick there has been, taking it from pornography to mainstream to parents pushing their kids basically, it's so worrisome to me. And I don't have I don't have all the answers. I am not I'm not in the political advocacy field, But I am here to just encourage you to do whatever you can to report what you see, whether it's flagging something on a social media platform, to speaking to people who are around you about this, to not viewing it when it's out there, when you do see it, speaking about your outrage, because not speaking about it is acquiescence. Our silence as a society is extremely harmful because it allows it to perpetuate. So we must speak up about it. And again, whether you're speaking in a political sense, trying to strengthen policies or guidelines, or whether it's just in your own communities, I think that we have to bring this to light. We have to talk about it. Coach Aiden says that they have displays like that at CVS and Walmart now. Um, I'm assuming you're talking about kind of like the Brooke Shields billboard. So displays where they've got kids in sexualized poses or suggestive poses in makeup. Um, I have seen an uptick of, you know, kids hugging, cuddling, kissing almost, and it's made to be cute. It's represented, I should say, as, cute. That's their goal or whatever. But you're putting them in a situation, in a position, in a pose that is something that is more appropriate for an adult. And I really want to encourage you to think about this, notice it. If there's been specific examples that you've seen, whether it's in music or movies, that we don't support that. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I'm really curious to know, and drop a comment. Why do you think that this has happened? Why do you think there has been an uptick in the normalization of this type of material? The best that I can think of is because sex sells. And advertisers, influencers, anybody who is looking to get views is not stupid. And they can see that this is one area, using porn as an example, this is one area that has increased in terms of people wanting to watch. And so they've brought that from the darkness of porn and are using it in the mainstream because it's something that people are willing to watch. It's the only thing that I have, but I'd love to hear your side of things as to why you think that this has gone to the mainstream. or gone to the level that I'm getting it in a YouTube ad where they are just flat out accepting of a parent stepchild sexual relationship. I cannot make let's say I can't make sense of it, but I gave you, my 2 cents as to why I think it is. Cotrain says money, greed, and the internet. Yeah. I mean, I love the internet. It is such a wonderful tool, but it is also a horrible tool. And again, our silence is damaging. I think that this is something that needs to be spoken about more and not just accepted as, you know, yeah, it's that, or, did you see that? That's just, that was gross. Did you see that influencer using their kids? And I know occasionally when it gets to a certain level, it'll reach mainstream outrage, but it's like outrage for that story. And then we're on to something else. And it's not a great topic. It's certainly not a party starter. How do we fix it? By not being accepting of it, by educating kids as to what's acceptable and what's not, by educating adults as to what's acceptable and what's not. If people were to push back against influencers and not watch their content when they are sexualizing their children or engaging in poses with their kids that seem inappropriate, they're going to find another avenue then to try and gain their views. It's only going to happen if people talk about it, if they express their outrage, if they don't watch. Oh, sorry. If they don't watch the material, we've got to be vocal about it. And I think that there's certainly a place for, political advocacy, for, societal advocacy, which is what societal advocacy is what I think of as the day to day. Coach says internet access is almost impossible to stop, and that is the root of all evil. And again, I don't think the internet is the problem. Society is the problem. It's what we are accepting of things that are put on the internet. If those people didn't get views, if they weren't getting attention and weren't seeing success because of what they're doing, I think we would see a decline. But that's only going to happen if we talk about this and we say, enough's enough. This has gone far enough. We don't accept this. We don't want to see this. There is there's absolutely no reason I should have heard that YouTube video. And today's not the first time I've seen it. And it wasn't the only YouTube video that I saw, basically the exact same ad, but different visuals. There's no reason for it. And I'm scared to what's going to come next. So, you know, I was hoping we might have a few more people here tonight to join the chat to have a more of a conversation with this. So I still um encourage you guys in the comment sections. I want to hear what you have to say about this issue. What have you seen? How how do you react to it? What do you think we can do about this? Because I certainly do not want this to be the norm. I just I can't imagine a society where we are so accepting of this. Yes, we still have our criminal laws. Yes, if you ask the average person on the street, is it okay for a parent to have sex with their stepchild or their child? They're going to say, I would imagine most of them are going to say no. The farther this pendulum swings into desensitizing people and normalizing this behavior through media content, kind of the easier it becomes to accept. And behind closed doors, people might be willing to then act on something that they wouldn't otherwise act on because they've become so desensitized to it, because it's become so normalized. I don't think we're going to have a resurgence of, the adult child um, pro, pro adult child relationship advocacy groups anytime soon. But we've seen it in the past. They were really big in the 70s. And if this pendulum continues to swing, we very well could see a resurgence of things like NAMBLA or PET was in the UK. Um, and there's been, others throughout the globe. I really don't want to be alive to see that. Because how far would we have slid that these groups would now think it's a good time to come into the light again and to push their agendas? That frightens me because those are the types of groups that I know still exist on the dark net. But as we normalize this, how many people are going to then be supportive of it in the light? I think that's where we're headed if we don't speak up and we don't educate people about this. Patty, I agree absolutely. And she's I agree with you that the home is one place that we can have an effect. She says the only thing we can do right now is in the home. And I disagree with you on that because I think not only is it in your home, but you can speak about it to your friends. You can speak about it to your family relations who aren't in your home. Like I said, I know it's not a nice subject, but the more a conversation gets going, the more awareness there is that this is an issue. When we're not silent about it, the better chance we have to arrest this developing trend. Our silence is extremely harmful. So I think that absolutely you can affect in the home, but talk about it everywhere. Yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking about my upcoming trip to Vancouver and the poor souls that are gonna have to sit next to me on that plane. I have no doubt if they start talking to me that they're gonna get an earful on subjects that they probably did not want to hear about and did not want to talk about. But that's me, you know? If they ask me what I am or what I do, I do law during the day, but that's not my passion. My passion is trauma and survivors and the subjects that affect us and affect society in regards to all of this. And I think I've chosen a window seat, so I only have one person to torture. Unless I was put my earbuds in the entire time. But yeah, those poor souls. Uh, we'll see what ends up happening. Hey, Don, good to see you. Chatting and listening while driving. Good. I'm glad you're not texting and driving. That's a bad combination. So we're just almost on 7 o'clock here today. That's really all I have to say on the subject. I don't have a definitive end to it because there isn't one. You know, our biggest question now is, yeah, what can we do about it? How can we fix this? And what we need to fix is this increase in trend, this normalization. And we need to stand up and say, it's not okay. This stuff is not cool. Don't buy that bikini for your 5-year-old. Don't buy that halter top that, ends at that leaves midriff for your 10-year-old. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff in terms of visual sexualization occurs with females versus males in terms of clothing and things of that nature. But the posing of kids, a male child and a female child together in suggestive poses, this is going to affect the boys as they grow up and what they think is normal. And as we discussed in the video about the effect of porn on kids, it is teaching them what is okay. they're not educated about pornography and what it is, that can become their template for relationships. And so you've got, on one hand, the women who are portrayed as just accepting of it, and the men just taking. And then you've got this angle, the taboo angles of parent-child relationships, and thinking that that's okay in some way as well. You know, we've talked about kids in school, how boys banging your teacher would just be a cool thing. Like, oh my God, how, you got that? Way to go. Teaching boundaries, that's not okay. So yeah, we're just on 7 now, and again, I don't have any answers, but I do wanna hear your thoughts in the comments, guys. I'd love to have a bigger conversation about this. If you wanna keep talking, about this in another video, I can certainly promote it as, "Hey, everybody come on, we're gonna have a big talk about this." This was just something that I threw together at the last minute because that video came up. I was actually gonna do an episode on trauma talk and, uh, talking about some of the questions that people have put on Reddit in regards to trauma, CPTSD, trauma, SA survivors. So I think I might be doing that on Saturday. This, is just something I'm just baffled by, absolutely baffled. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you've seen the same ad that I have, because I have no idea why I, again, I have no idea why I got that. I'm listening to the military undercover bartender standing her ground against the bikers that, want to take over the town. These are the type of AI stories that I've been listening to. Just, people standing their ground and not giving into to violence or intimidation or things like that. Uh, uh, Why? So, well, thank you to everyone who was here today listening. We will be back Saturday at 3 p.m. I will be putting up a thumbnail soon about that. Probably tomorrow. I need to go ice my lip. It is hurting underneath and on top where I've got the biggest gouges, and I need to go ice it. After talking for an hour, I'm done. It's my max for today. So. Thank you again for being here. Please remember, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So, hugs and love from me. Mwah. It's the best that I can do with my kisses today. Surviving together, never alone. Enjoy the outro.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chains, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see